As men, understanding our sexual energy is so key. It's not something that's talked about in school. Your parents probably didn't teach you anything. Mine didn't. And I want to share a bit of my story and why it's important, why sexual energy is so important, and what it really is. For me, very horny as a teenager, as many of us are. Kind of fearful around sex, nervous, which is kind of normal. Didn't know why. I lost my virginity when I was like 18 years old. A lot of that fear was stuff I suppressed that I was unaware of, which was from sexual abuse as a kid that happened from 5 to 8 years old. More on that in another video. And went and had my first girlfriend, was horny, didn't know anything about sexual energy, had my second girlfriend, which is quite a few years later, several years later. And started just playing with these concepts of like, man, that was 2012. Like semen retention wasn't something you're reading about online in the same way you could today. And it was like being afraid of sex, her wanting a lot of sex, me feeling uncomfortable and not knowing why, me drinking to feel more comfortable during sex, which is very common, whether people have had sexual abuse or haven't. When I started doing research a few years later, I found that most dudes in their 30s, 40s, and 50s would smoke weed or drink most of the time, even if just a little bit, around sex. So got into, like I said, a little bit like, I guess, dipping my toe in the water of semen retention, of not ejaculating or having sex for a week and seeing how I felt and not understanding this whole moving the energy thing. And then got into a relationship where I was really connected with someone. Decided to take about a year or 11 months sober. And it was kind of scary. Like that level of intimacy of like nowhere to go and looking at another person, looking them in the eyes. And it was intimidating. It was harder. It was harder than I thought it would be. And again, part of that was just being awkward and being young. I'm still in my 20s at this point, I think 29. Part of it was not having the crutch of alcohol. And part of it was having the suppressed sexual abuse stuff that I hadn't realized consciously it was there. It was obviously there. And then dealt with years later with ayahuasca and therapy and many different occasions, breath work as well. Knew I wanted to explore more. Maybe you guys can relate to some of this because we kind of go through 3 stages, hopefully. Not necessarily, but hopefully. We go through like forced monogamy, which is we have to be monogamous to submit to how society is. Like when you're 18, your body is like telling you get every girl pregnant. Like that's what it's telling you. It's not sustainable to live that way. However, that is what our biology is telling us. We're definitely made as young men to make sure the species survives. But it can be kind of messy. And then it brings us to another phase, which is playing the field, show up as open relationships, could show up as polyamory, could show up as just being a playboy and dating 5 women at once. Hopefully you tell them the truth so they don't think they're all your girlfriend, and just being honest. And then there's choosing something consciously, which can show up in many different forms, but really being intentional about what you're building in your relationship with your sexual energy. We'll go to part 2, playing the field, the playboy phase. So I moved to Colombia at 31. 31. Was dating a girl, broke up after a month, sold all my stuff in Chicago, didn't have anything to go back to, was living in Bogota, which is like Colombia's New York. I'm in Medellin right now, off to Miami tomorrow morning. And it was like overwhelming and awesome being here. Came here with Tusa, with like heartbreak. Didn't do the whole wild Medellin thing, at least not the first 6 months. And then just gave myself permission to explore things more. sex clubs, prostitutes, three ways, dating 5, 6 women at once, telling them that I'm dating 5 or 6 women at the same time because that felt right, even though I wasn't totally confident about it or owning it. I was honest at least. And it taught me a lot because it taught me that forced monogamy sucks if you feel you're just submitting to what religion or society tells you. Often our hearts aren't that connected to it, or at least mine wasn't. And then it's a way of losing our balls, in my opinion, because it's not doing it because we love this woman. It's doing it because I want a girlfriend, I want a wife, I want to have kids. I guess this is what you do, or I'll cheat on a business trip. I hadn't cheated, but that could be a common one, or depending on what culture you live in. And then after a few years, it was a lot of drugs, booze, weed, Cialis, prostitutes, and then kind of chilled out, was dating a girl for a while. We're monogamish, and she wanted to explore more things with other girls and things like that, so doing things like that a bit, sex clubs. And then had a bad breakup during that time with her, and it just came to like a screeching halt of like, what the fuck am I doing? Up until then, when that happened, it really started to shift. It was early 2022. But I was starting to like feel it months before. I was like, yeah, I gotta change something. Been dating this girl like a year, it's too long, we're not going the same way. And yeah, man, things came to a screeching halt. I had tracked 2 years worth of orgasms and ejaculations at that point, like track them on an app every fucking day, like a freak. Which over time, which I stopped doing last year, so I had 5 years of tracking every single ejaculation I ever had, which made me more in my head. It made me more in my head to go, let me see, how long can I make love? Okay, 40 minutes, okay, an hour, okay, 2 hours, okay, 3 hours, okay, 4 hours. I'm sure it was very pleasurable. It was pleasurable for me. I'm sure it was even more pleasurable for her, but I was able to perform, but I was disconnected. And when we start paying attention to our sexual energy, to our desires, to how we use that, sometimes it's easy for us to fall into that trap of getting kind of disconnected, of like, well, I just have to do it. I just have to do more. We can even create, you've probably read about this online, a negative association then. Even if you view this energy as sacred, you don't want to waste it. How do you manage this exactly? And then you're like, oh, I'm doing this exercise, I shouldn't have finished. Now you're mad at yourself, and it crosses these wires. So I went through a bit of that. And then after that breakup, I just felt bad. So I did what I would, looking back, call like shame-based celibacy. Meaning I was celibate for 18 months. I had sex 3 times, so I was mainly celibate. But it didn't really feel good. Sex didn't feel good. At that time, I felt not in my body after that experience. Right before that breakup, a little before, I started to confront the sexual abuse, which was shown to me in an ayahuasca ceremony over and over and over. Started gentle, and then it would like remind me every few months, hey, gotta look at this. Hey, it's not true. I'll go to another shaman. The other shaman it'll be different family, different shaman, different part of the jungle, same results more or less. I was like, fuck. Okay, I gotta confront this. So I confronted it. As men, we don't really understand the power of our sexual energy. And it's normally not framed this way, but it's an enormous vulnerability. Not just not understanding the power, but we have this drive to us that I've seen guys, they don't do drugs, they don't drink, but their sexual energy gets off or gets the best of them or causes problems, or they have an agreement, they have an open relationship. And I'm not saying those are bad. I think a lot of people that are in them, there's a lot of mask and shadow and stuff underneath. So what do you do with your sexual energy in 2026? I can tell you it drained me to track all my ejaculations and orgasms for 5 years. It was cool for a while, but then I realized I had this negative association. Certain things, I think, and this is to answer the question of what to do in 2026, they don't necessarily need to be tracked. I wore an Oura ring for 8 years. I'll probably never wear one again. I know my steps on my phone, my sleep, that's gonna interfere enough, at least when I muscle test it with my circadian rhythm, having an Oura ring. And I know, what time is it right now? Probably 9:30. I know if I go to bed around 10, get up at 6, that's universally agreed upon that that's a sweet spot, and my numbers have reflected accordingly. I know if I spray on magnesium and take some Kion sleep stuff. So tracking all your ejaculations, you probably don't need to. But simply viewing that you have this energy inside you and it's here to do something. At a minimum, like if you look at 2020 to 2025, overall in that 5-year period, instead of looking from, let's say, pre-COVID, so going into the end of 2019 back to 2015, in those two 5-year chunks, does the world feel more certain? Do you feel that, more, call it confidence, call it comfort, in 2015 to 2020 than 2020 to 25 or early 2026? Well, most people say they feel more uncertainty now in these last 5 years, especially since COVID, and regardless of your vaccine beliefs, your political beliefs, it still felt uncertain. What you can get from your own energy is a sense of certainty within yourself, of who you are, a confidence that doesn't leave you. It's not the same if you go and just lift at the gym. It's not the same if you know martial arts. I think both those things are awesome, to know how to take a kick, take a punch, give a punch, choke someone out. Life is gonna feel much more uncertain for most people in the next 5 years. And the people that position themselves right, valuing your body and your energy as something to be purified and something sacred and something to share in a different way, is one thing you can start to do. And it brings us in that conversation we were having about 5 minutes ago about stage 3. And to take some time, and this is what helped me, and it could help you a lot, to take some time to view this energy as sacred. And maybe you go, you know what? I'm not gonna ejaculate for a month. I'm not gonna date for the summer. I do think there is diminishing returns, where if a guy doesn't self-pleasure, doesn't do anything, doesn't move that energy, and it kind of becomes just like dormant, like stagnant, that's not where anyone would want to be. But that this is a very, very sacred energy. My distinctions from that time that I've learned on this journey of 13 years, much more the last 5 or 6, it's not like I was so sloppy with it with women. I would tell the truth, and that's how I kind of justified it. Like, well, I'm dating 6 women, but at least I'm telling them all I'm dating them. But there was so much pain, so much mismanagement, so much, because I'm dating 6 women, this makes me a man, this makes me an alpha. And it couldn't have been further from the truth. Did I have the illusion of praise, let's call it, from friends and stuff? Sure. But it ultimately felt incongruent. Now it's very different, or it can be different, if you're 20 and watching this. I'm 40. It's different to retain or to focus that energy. At 20, it can be extra high voltage just because you're firing on all cylinders the same way. I do things to supplements, exercise, diets, take care of my testosterone. It's not as insane as when I was 20, but it's still high. And when you start to learn with time to channel these things, and you see what shows up, you see you just feel different, you see you speak different, you see your testosterone numbers go up, you notice maybe your beer comes in thicker, you make decisions different, your voice starts to sound different. Again, that might be Phil science. I don't have documentation on this, but even the way I would speak over the years, the more I would retain and work on myself and be in alignment, the more I would just speak with a different level of certainty and power. Owning your sexual energy is owning your power, and it gets leaked so many ways. You could be dating a girl and going, well, it's new, or we're not official, and then it's like looking at these things on Instagram. which Instagram is awesome, and it's kind of a bitch because when you watch it, no matter what you like, you could have the brand new Bentley and you go, oh, I just saw this new thing on Instagram. It's not the newest Rolls Royce. I don't know. So we have these constant things that can pull us versus focusing on what we're building. I was at an ayahuasca ceremony a few days ago. I wasn't planning to bring that up. It told me something really interesting. It's been teaching me for the last year about sexual energy, libido, testosterone, and the couple of realizations I've gotten in the last few months. Living your life in alignment builds libido and testosterone and sexual energy. It's not just a mechanical function of a car, like you change the oil or you put on new tires. It doesn't quite work that way. What I can tell you from my experience, and I'm making more content about this, it's a sacred energy that can fuel you in finances, in attracting women, in just having a different, like, energetically, sexually yoked. And what another thing it really does that's vital, especially in these times, when you're not wasting it and you're holding it, women can feel it and they can know you're probably a safer dude than most dudes. They can just sense something. Because one thing that looks so weak to women is a guy who, you know, quote unquote, can't keep it in his pants or is just, when we breathe that energy into our body, when we move it, we know what we want to focus it on. And what I've found, which is a paradox, even Dan Bilzerian says it now, focusing that energy on one woman is infinitely more powerful than looking around, waiting, knowing you have steak, but you want to try another steak. And it becomes an addiction, and especially for guys that are making a lot of money, they're doing big things. They're not into drugs. They're not into, smoking weed, it's prescription or it's organic, or pills or booze. But sex can get you, it will get you on course or get you off course and managing that energy more than most things we do. Thank you for tuning in. See you soon. Next video, Miami.